He undressed slowly when she whispered, "Don't leave tonight." A cowboy's last chance at love. Asterisk, I never figured a sandstorm could be my ally, but there it was. Whipping through Perdition Ridge like the devil himself was chasing his tail. The wind howled like a banshee, flinging red dust into my eyes, stinging like 1,000 needles. My horse, Rusty, snorted and bucked beneath me, his hooves pounding the cracked earth as we barreled down the ridge. Behind me, 3 shadows cut through the haze, strangers with guns drawn, their faces masked against the grit. They weren't locals. I could tell by the way they rode, too eager, too damn sure of themselves. They'd been tailing me since dawn, hollering something about a secret I thought I'd buried deep in the Arizona Badlands. "Who sent you?" I yelled back, but the storm swallowed my words. A shot cracked through the air, the bullet whizzing past my ear close enough to singe my hat brim. I twisted in the saddle, my Colt .45 already in hand. Old habits die hard in this godforsaken territory. I fired once, blind into the dust, and heard a grunt, a horse's scream. 1 down. The other 2 pressed on, their mounts foaming at the bit. My shoulder burned like fire where the first slug had grazed me earlier that morning. Blood soaking through my shirt, warm and sticky. It wasn't the pain that got to me. It was the why. Why now? Why these men? I'd kept my head down for years, drifting from ranch to ranch, herding cattle under skies that never forgave. But the past has a way of clawing its way back, doesn't it? Eliza's face flashed in my mind, my kid brother, swinging from that cursed rope in the town square, his eyes wide with the shock of betrayal. They said he robbed the bank, but I knew better. It was a setup, courtesy of the fat cats who ran this territory like their personal kingdom. I'd sworn off vengeance, but damn if it didn't simmer in my gut like bad whiskey. Another shot rang out, this one clipping Rusty's flank. He reared, nearly throwing me, but I held on, digging my spurs in. "Easy, boy," I muttered, tasting blood and sand. I wheeled around, facing them head-on. The storm parted just enough for me to see their ice-cold hired killer's eyes. I squeezed the trigger twice, quick as lightning. The first man slumped forward, tumbling into the dust. The second clutched his chest, his horse bolting wild. But the third, he veered off, vanishing into the swirling red, leaving me with a knot in my stomach bigger than the one in my shoulder. Who was he? And who pulled his strings? I didn't stick around to ponder. Rusty and I pushed on, the storm raging like it wanted to erase us both. By the time we hit the outskirts of Perdition Ridge, the wind had died to a whisper, leaving behind a town coated in crimson grit. This place was the end of the liner cluster of weathered buildings, leaning against each other like drunks at closing time. The air reeked of cheap whiskey, horse manure, and desperation. Men with hard stares lounged on porches, fingers itching near their holsters. Women, in faded dresses, flashed brittle smiles from saloon windows, their eyes hollow from too many nights selling what little they had left. I tied Rusty to a post outside the livery, my hand pressing against the wound to staunch the flow. Blood dripped onto the dust, mixing with the dust. I needed a dock, but first a drink to dull the edge. The saloon's swinging doors creaked as I pushed through, the piano tinkling some off-key tune that grated on my nerves. Heads turned old-timers, nursing beers, a couple of ranch hands playing cards. In the corner, a grizzled fella named Hank, who I'd known from my drifting days, nodded at me. Wyatt Kane, as I live and breathe, you look like hell dragged you through it. Ain't far off, I grunted, sliding onto a stool at the bar. The barkeep, a wiry man with a mustache like a broom, poured me a shot without asking. I downed it, fire spreading through my chest, chasing away the chill. Hank sidled up, his voice low. Heard you've been out on the range. Trouble find you already? Always does, I said, not meeting his eyes. Hank was a good sawtran. The general store had a wife and 2 kids, who somehow thrived in this hellhole. He'd tried to talk me into settling down once, but I wasn't built for that. Not after Elias. Before he could press, a scream cut through the din from the alley out back. Sharp, terrified, the kind that hits you in the gut. The saloon fell quiet for a beat, then folks went back to their drinks like it was nothing. But me, that sound yanked at something deep, a echo of Elias's last cry before the noose tightened. I was out the door before I thought twice, my boots silent in the dust. The alley was narrow, shadowed by the saloon's wall and a rickety stable. There she was, a slip of a girl, no more than 20, her black hair tangled like a wild mane, dress torn at the hem, 1 foot bare and bleeding. She was backed against the wall, eyes wide as a cornered deer. Looming over her was a bull of a man, guth straining his shirt, breath reeking of rot gut. In his hand, a bottle. With the other, he grabbed her arm, twisting hard. You ain't going. Nowhere, sweetheart, he slurred, his laugh wet and ugly. Madame Vesper owns you fair and square. From the mouth of the alley stepped a woman who could freeze hell over Madame Vesper, her face caked in powder and rouge, eyes black as coal. She ran the town's only entertainment house, the kind where dreams went to die. That's right, Eliza, she purred, voice like poisoned honey. You signed on. Now get back inside before I make you regret it. The girly Liza shook her head, tears streaking her dust-smeared cheeks. No, please, no more. Something snapped in me. Maybe it was the blood loss making me reckless, or maybe it was seeing Ilias's innocence mirrored in her terror. I stepped forward, my shadow falling long. The big man turned, startled. This ain't your business, stranger. My eyes locked on his grip, then on her face, those hazel eyes pleading, full of a pain I knew too well. I didn't waste words. My fist shot out, cracking his nose with a satisfying crunch. He staggered, blood spraying, and dropped the bottle. It shattered like thunder. Madame Vesper gasped, her composure cracking. You fool, do you know who I am? I drew my Colt slow, thumbing back the hammer. The click echoed in the alley. Don't matter. She's leaving with me. Her face paled under the makeup. She hissed something about regrets and turned on her heel, vanishing into the saloon. The big man groaned on the ground, but I ignored him. Holding out a hand to Eliza, she stared at it, trembling, then took it hesitantly. Her palm was cold, calloused from God knows what hardships. Come on, I muttered, pulling her gently toward Rusty. She limped, her injured foot leaving bloody prints. I lifted her onto the saddle like she weighed nothing, swinging up behind her. My arms encircled her waist to steady her, nothing more. But I felt her stiffen, then relax just a fraction as we rode out. The town faded behind us in a cloud of dust, but Madame's parting glare burned in my mind. You'll pay for this, Kane, she'd whispered. How did she know my name? That third gunman from the storm, he must have been one of hers. A bigger game was afoot, and I'd just stepped right into it. We rode hard for hours, the sun dipping low, painting the desert in gold and shadow. Eliza didn't speak, her body rigid against mine. I could feel her heartbeat racing, a frantic drum against my chest. My own thoughts swirled, why her? Why now? The wound in my shoulder throbbed with every jolt, but I pushed it down. Pain was an old friend. Finally, as dusk crept in, we reached my hideout, an old wooden cabin tucked in a stand of pines, miles from anywhere. The wind whispered through the needles, a lonesome sound that matched the ache in my soul. I helped her down, her weight light in my arms. She winced as her foot hit the ground. Inside, I said, guiding her through the door. The place was sparse, a cot, a table, a stone hearth. I lit a lantern, the flame flickering shadows across the walls. She sank onto the cot, eyes darting like a trapped animal. "Who are you?" she whispered, voice hoarse. "Wyatt Kane." I knelt, examining her foot, a deep gash, dirt-packed. I fetched water and rags, cleaning it gentle as I could. She hissed in pain, but didn't pull away. "Why'd you help me?" Her eyes searched mine, full of doubt and something softer, hope, maybe. I paused, the cloth red with her blood. "Seen enough folks get chewed up by this world. Ain't right." She laughed bitterly. "Right, in Perdition Ridge. You're either a fool or a saint." "Neither." I bandaged her foot, my fingers brushing her skin. A spark jumped, unexpected, warm. I pulled back quick. "Rest. You're safe here, safe." The word hung heavy. Was I, that gunman who'd escaped, Madame's whisper they'd come looking. And Eliza, she carried secrets too, I could tell. The way she flinched at shadows, the scars peeking from her sleeve. What hell had she escaped? As night fell, I built a fire, the crackle filling the silence. She watched me, curiosity warring with fear. "You got a story, Wyatt Kane?" Folks don't just ride in like knights in dusty boots. I poked the flames, Elias's face rising unbidden. "Had a brother once, Elias. Good kid, too trusting. They hung him for something he didn't do. Town bigwigs pinned it on him to cover their tracks." My voice roughened. "I couldn't save him. Been running from that ever since." Her expression softened, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry, I know about loss. My pa sold me to Vespa when I was 16. Said it was for the family. Been her property ever since." She spat the word like venom. Anger flared in me hot, protective. "Ain't nobody's property. Not anymore." She met my gaze, and for a moment the world narrowed to just us. Her hair caught the firelight, black waves framing a face that could break a man's heart. I felt a pull, deep and dangerous, like the first stirrings of a storm, but I shoved it down. She needed healing, not complications. That night, I sat by the window, rifle across my knees, watching the dark. Sleep evaded me, thoughts tangled with her breathing soft, uneven. What was this woman doing to me? I'd lived alone so long, walls high as the Rockies. Yet here she was, cracking them without trying. Dawn broke cold and clear. Eliza stirred, wincing as she tried to stand. "I should go. I don't want to bring trouble on you." "Trouble's already here," I said, handing her a tin cup of coffee. "Besides, you ain't walking on that foot yet." She took it, fingers brushing mine. Another spark. Why risk it? For a stranger like me. I looked out at the pines, wind rustling like secrets. "Maybe 'cause I see a fighter in you. World tries to break us, but we keep standing. She sipped, eyes thoughtful. You're different, Wyatt. Most men, they take what they want. Not me. I stood, grabbing my spare revolver from the shelf. Come on. Time you learned to take care of yourself. Outside, the air was crisp, birds calling from the trees. I set up a tin can on a stump, handed her the gun. It looked heavy in her small hands. Hold it steady, breathe out slow. Squeeze, don't jerk. Her first shot went wide, kicking up dirt. She cursed, a word that'd make a sailor blush. I chuckled, the first real laugh in months, again. She tried, missing twice more before nailing it dead center. The can flew, clanging into the brush. She turned, eyes shining. I did it. You did. I smiled, rare as rain in the desert. Her joy lit something in me, warm and unfamiliar. As she handed back the gun, our hands lingered. Her touch was electric, stirring feelings I'd buried with Elias. But as the sun climbed, unease crept in. Tracks in the dirt-fresh bootprints circling the cabin. Not animals, men. I knelt, tracing them, to sets leading off into the woods. Hunters. Eliza, I called, voice low. She froze at the door. We got company, Cumin. Her face paled. Vesper, likely. I checked my Colt, chambers full. Stay inside. But she grabbed the revolver. No, you taught me for a reason. Pride swelled in me, mixed with fear for her. As shadows moved in the trees, guns glinting, my heart pounded. Who were they? What did they want? And how deep did this web go? The first shot shattered the morning, splintering the cabin door. I dove, pulling Eliza down. Stay low. 2 men burst from the Pines bounty hunters, badges fake as fool's gold. One fired wild bullet thudding into the wall. I rolled, squeezed off a round. It hit true, the man crumpling with a yell. The second charged, knife drawn. Eliza's gun barked a shot, grazing his arm. He howled, dropping the blade. I tackled him, fist connecting with jaw. He went down, hard, out cold. Breathing ragged, I tied him quick. Eliza stood over us, gun steady, eyes fierce. Who sent you? He spat blood. Madame Vesper. Says the girl's got secrets that'll bury Hanju, Kane, for sticking your nose in secrets. I glanced at Eliza, her face ashen. What hadn't she told me? As we dragged him inside for questioning, the air thickened with unanswered questions. Vesper's reach was longer than I thought, tying back to Elias somehow. My shoulder ached, but it was nothing to the storm brewing in my chest, a mix of rage, protectiveness, and something deeper for this woman who'd crashed into my life like a runaway train. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. The real fight was coming, and it'd test every scar, every secret, every fragile thread between us.